Romance Theater. Welcome to Rexburg's Meet the Candidates event tonight, both here in the Romance Theater and joining us online on eastidahonews.com. My name is Brett Crandall. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Executive Committee for the Rexburg Area Chamber of Commerce. We are excited to hear tonight from our 6 City Council candidates, as well as our 3 mayoral candidates for the upcoming election here in November. Before we officially begin, we'd like to have you join us in a prayer offered by Jackie Frank, and then a Pledge of Allegiance led by Janelyn Holt. Jackie, if you'd come on up.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day, and we're thankful for the opportunity that we have to gather here and hear from our candidates. We're so grateful to live in this amazing country. Please bless and guide us as we vote, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you all very much. We would first like to thank the Rexburg Area Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event, as well as some of our sponsors: David Taylor, owner of Taylor Chevrolet, Idaho Central Credit Union, Raybold Family Farms, and Citizens Community Bank as our sponsors this evening. In addition, our delicious refreshments provided by Victoria Ramirez with charcuterie boards and Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, both our chamber members. In case you have a family or friends that cannot be here in person tonight, go ahead and text them, shoot them an email, and let them know that this event is streaming on eastidahonews.com. Thank you for joining us again online, as well as on their Facebook page. Now, we're excited tonight to have Nate Eaton help moderate this event from East Idaho News. And I'm going to take a moment to introduce my friend Nate to you here. Nate began his journalism career here in the Rexburg area in Idaho Falls at KIDK before he moved to Richmond, Virginia to continue working in the television news industry. Nate has earned a National Edward R. Murrow Award, a National Investigative Reporter and Editor Award, and awards from the National Federation of Press Women, Society of Professional Journalists, Idaho Press Club, and other organizations. He's been nominated for several Emmys, and the Virginia Associated Press named him Outstanding Reporter of the Year 4 times. In 2015, Nate moved back to Idaho Falls and helped launch eastidahonews.com. He has covered closely several prominent stories in our community, including the disappearance of Dior Coons, as well as the Chad and Lori Daybell murder case. Nate and his wife Erica have 3 children. So without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Nate to begin the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Here's how this is going to work. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement, and then we will have questions. Some of the questions will go to all of the candidates. Some of them will be for specific candidates. You will have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. When it gets to the end, we will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. We will then take a 10-minute break around 8 o'clock and reset the stage for the mayoral debate, or the mayoral forum. So we'll have a break at that point, and then we'll start up again with the mayoral candidates. So with that being done, we ask that you show respect and don't boo any of the candidates. You may clap, but we want to hear as much as we can from them. With that, we'll start here. The candidates are arranged alphabetically on the stage. Mr. Erickson, if you want to start with your opening statement, and we'll just go down the line. You have 2 minutes each. Someone is keeping time right up here on the front row. 1 minute, I'm sorry. Can you hold up your sign so that they can see it? That's your time cue. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Nate. Just a brief introduction. I'm a long-term resident of Rexburg. We had a family-owned and operated small business here in town, Erickson Pontiac GMC. We were here for over 50 plus years. Retired in 2019. Sold the business and gave us an opportunity to do some other things. My wife and I have served a mission to France since that time, and back, and kind of wanted to throw myself into a little bit of community service. Graduate of Madison High School, class of 75. Married to the former Tammy Cheney. Wow. That was quick. I'm proud to say that Tammy is currently serving as the president of the Rexburg Civic Club here in town. So the community, sense of community runs deep in our family.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
My name is Brianna Johnson. I'm running for re-election for the City Council. I went to college here 20 years ago, and then my family moved here permanently in 2010 so that my husband could start teaching physics at BYU-Idaho. Since then, I've also started teaching as adjunct faculty on campus. I teach child development in the home and family department. I've worked with children in one way or another for most of my life, and I've been so thankful to have those opportunities. I've also really loved being on the City Council for the last 4 years. When I ran 4 years ago, I knew that I felt passionately about a few things, and then I quickly learned that I feel passionately about all of it. And I'm so thankful for the opportunities that I've had to learn about the city and to meet residents and to work out solutions with them to the problems that we face. I am a mother and still raising my children, and I feel like I have a voice that needs to be heard. I believe that in city leadership we should have men and women working together, and I would love to have another term.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
My name is Nathan Martin. As my colleagues here, I am running for City Council. Really what's important to me in this community is the fact we are America's family's town. And that's what I am going to try to reinforce for us while being able to create sustainable, affordable housing and keeping property taxes low. I have owned multiple businesses in the city. I've seen what allows our city to succeed and what holds us back. With that in mind, I've seen the issues that plague our community, such as low-paying wages and a lack of housing and infrastructure. I aim to fix these things that are critical and crucial in our community through working with private companies with minimal government intervention and simply using us as a city to be a guiding hand to help us stay America's family community.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reeser.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Reeser, and I'm running for Rexburg City Council. I'm running for several different reasons, but first and foremost because I love my hometown of Rexburg. I've lived here almost my entire life. My wife and I have raised a family here, and we have moved a couple of times, but we've always come back because this is the place that more than anywhere else feels like home, and I'm invested in the future of Rexburg. I'm also running because I believe I've got some valuable experience with creating and modifying public policy. I've twice been elected to the Madison Library Board of Trustees, and there help develop policies to run the library. And sometimes those policies have to be updated and modified as needs change. And so I've really enjoyed my time working on the library board and working with the other members of the board to make sure that our library runs efficiently and effectively, and been involved in budgeting and things like that, and have learned the need to be fiscally responsible and take that role very seriously. So I'm excited about this new opportunity, and I hope to be able to represent you on the Rexburg City Council.
Mr. Thackeray.
My name is Brian Thackeray. I'm a little different. I actually grew up all over the country, and it wasn't until I started going to school that I came to Rexburg. I graduated back in 2014, and after spending my time here coming to school, I fell in love with the place. Moved here, married a local, and we bought a home, started raising our family here, and started a business here. As someone who chose this place to be my home, I love Rexburg. I think it is a perfect place to start and raise a family. And the reason why I'm running for City Council is because I want to make sure that we keep Rexburg that kind of place. Somewhere where students can come here, start families, and transition to being long-term residents.
Thank you. Mr. Woodall.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rob Woodall. A little bit about me. My family has had a footprint here in eastern Idaho since the 1980s. We absolutely love it here. Went to school here at BYU-Idaho, and upon graduating, I ended up meeting my business partner, Curtis Eves, and we run and operate Madison Armory here in Rexburg. We really enjoy it. I love the town. One of the huge reasons that I'm running is because I think that as we're growing, there's a lot of different experiences that we need on city council. We need a background, we need a lot of different backgrounds on city council and diversity on city council. I think that some of the experiences that I have running and operating a business here in Rexburg would be really beneficial for city council, and I think that we can help grow Rexburg sustainably, keep our traditional family values, and figure out a way to make businesses more attractive in Rexburg. Figure out a way to be able to entice new businesses and new development and do it sustainably.
Thank you. There are 3 open seats on the City Council. Ms. Johnson is the incumbent. The rest of the candidates have hoped to win a seat on the council. The first question, the chamber solicited questions from the public, and this probably received more than any other topic. It is the topic of growth. This is a question for all of you. We will start with Mr. Woodall at the other end of the stage. Rexburg is one of the fastest growing cities in the state. Is the city managing its population growth well, and where can it improve? You have 2 minutes each.
So I think there's a lot of different factors that go into growth here in Rexburg. As we've been growing, we're seeing a lot of people moving in, both from surrounding communities and also from out of state. And as we're growing, one of the biggest things that we kind of have to plan for is infrastructure. I think all of us hear all the time about how we need the roads better here, we need a water main here, and when we were developing our new store here, there were definitely some growing pains as we were trying to get that infrastructure in place. One thing I would really like to see, I would like to see the city focus more on infrastructure as we're growing over the next few years. I would like to see the city work in order to bring new higher paying jobs to Rexburg and bring more affordable housing as well. There's definitely a lot of challenges that come with that, and a lot of it's going to come through budgeting, figuring out a way to bring in new revenue sources without taxing our current tax base more. That's one thing that's really important to me, is making sure that we don't burden our current citizens with taxes, and that we're not drowning in new bonds like we've seen before. And with that, I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to see it grow in a way that keeps our traditional family values, keeps the feel of Rexburg, without necessarily giving growth up. And that's one thing I'm really excited about doing.
Mr. Thackeray.
With managing the growth in Rexburg, one of the things I think is very important, which has been touched on earlier, is managing housing, keeping it affordable. Because one of the big things is making sure that those that want to move into home ownership have that capability, and we're not bulldozing what would be someone's starter home to build a 4-story apartment. So that way the families that, like I said, want to move in have a place where they can do that. Another thing when it comes to infrastructure is I also want to make sure that we focus on keeping Rexburg up to date with the technology of the times. There's a lot of places in this city where you still can't get very high-speed internet. So I want to focus on making sure that we have those tools for those that want to start businesses, that they can stay active, because running a business without the internet nowadays is nearly impossible. The last thing that I really wanted to touch on is keeping the area appealing to businesses, so that those that have an idea aren't breaking the bank to stay here. In doing so, we can make sure that there's jobs and the equity here so that people can not only afford to live here, but also flourish.
Thank you. Mr. Reeser.
Yeah, I believe there are 4 important things in order to manage growth well, and one is been discussed before, and that is affordable housing. The City Council can foster that through approval of housing developments and careful study over where those new subdivisions might go, new buildings might be built, and making sure that we're true to the plan that the city has created for the future, and also respectful for the neighbors and those other existing property owners that might be nearby. Also, I also believe it's important that we're a business-friendly town. We've got, of course, BYU-Idaho and Madison School District, 2 very large employers in Rexburg and in Madison County. But we also have a number of small businesses, and it would be wonderful if we could create an environment to where we can attract additional ones and help drive up the employment rate as well as the wages in this area. I also agree that infrastructure is key roads, bridges, internet access, and those types of things. And as our community grows outward, we've got to make sure that the roads and bridges and those types of things are sustainable and are able to handle the increased traffic and the increased load. And one thing that I've kind of touched on before, I think it's also important that we address the challenges that sometimes happen between existing neighborhoods and incoming infrastructure, or existing neighborhoods and a new neighborhood that's coming in right nearby. And I know that that's such a challenge because people don't like to see their existing neighborhood change. They don't like to see the stresses and the challenges that may come from a larger road, increased traffic, and those types of things. And so if elected to the city council, my first and foremost responsibility would be to listen. Just listen to the concerns of both sides, and then hopefully be able to counsel together with the other members of the council and develop the wisest solution possible.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Well, when it comes to our growth, I would say the most pressing challenge of that is going to be affordable housing, as which has been said. Now, with that, it's not a matter of, oh, let's invite affordable housing. Single-family homes are expensive. Home ownership is out of reach of a lot of the people coming here. Brigham Young University, Idaho plans on doubling their enrollment in the next 4 years. That is a lot of people coming in that do not have the money to buy homes. Single-family homes isn't the solution. The solution is more density for more affordable housing. Zoning things away from single-family in undeveloped areas and promoting density, which also promotes walkability, will not only lower the strain on our roads, our existing infrastructure, but will make putting in new infrastructure less expensive for not only the city, but for the individual. It creates better solutions for high-speed internet because companies are more likely to put it in where there's more people on a single block. Instead of putting it in through whole neighborhoods, they simply have to put it in one building. So I am going to promote that, higher density in the correct areas. We do not want to ruin our beautiful neighborhoods, but we need to be able to put in key spots, higher density to create more affordable housing, to create better infrastructure that people can afford. It's not about just putting in infrastructure. If you can't afford it, it doesn't matter. So I will create these solutions we so desperately need with our inevitable growth.
Mr. Martin, if I may follow up, you mentioned that BYU-Idaho plans to double enrollment within the next 4 years. Can you share with us where you got that information?
Yes, that was recently spoken by the new, sorry, I'm blanking on his name. The new
President Meredith.
Yeah, President Meredith. He recently shared that in a statement to the student body.
Okay. We will have to check on that, but thank you very much. Continuing with the question, if Ms. Johnson, if you want to answer that.
When I'm in conversations with residents about managing growth, I feel like the number one concern that I've heard is that we actually don't have enough single-family unattached housing for our population, and so for me, I feel like one of the biggest issues as this growth is coming in is to have enough single-family unattached housing, because that's what our residents are looking for. We actually have about 25 to 30% of our housing is single unattached, and I think we need more. So I feel like one of the things that I've tried to do is to be a voice for keeping zoning that allows for that housing, so that families can come here and they can have families and they can raise their children so that they have a place to run and play outside safely. I feel like we have to constantly be mindful of the things that have already been said, infrastructure, make sure that we have enough roads that we can keep up with, enough infrastructure as we allow the growth in. I feel like we need to make sure we have enough schools. All of these things need to be considered, and we shouldn't grow faster than we are able to. We have done some things such as fiber, as so many residents are unpleased with the construction that's come with that, but we do have fiber coming in, so we have been trying to do some things. And to bring businesses in, we need, there are so many things that maybe people don't think about. We need to have more recreational opportunities. We need more trails and parks. Those are things that actually are attractive to businesses to make our city a place where people want to come. So I feel like we have to manage that growth while keeping in mind what our goals are, our long-range goals, and those are to have stable neighborhoods where people can raise families and stay here long-term.
Thank you. And Mr. Erickson.
Well, there's no question that growth is the biggest challenge facing the city. Just over the last 5 years, we've experienced 40% population growth. We're now pushing 40,000 population, and with that comes all sorts of issues. Infrastructure, keeping up with the infrastructure, planning for moving the infrastructure out further from the city core. Transportation is an issue. If you've been down 2nd East today, you've seen that we had, or Main Street, we've got some issues with transportation. We only have one major road to connect North Rexburg with the rest of the city. Only two, Main Street and 7th South, to connect the city with the west part of the city, where it seems a lot of the growth is going to the west. So I think there needs to be some study about connecting those major parts of the city in a way that we can facilitate the growth and facilitate the connection between those parts of the city. I think there's no question. I've been serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission for the last 2 years. The pressure is certainly to more, from developers, is to more dense types of developments. But the pushback from the citizens has been certainly, we want to maintain our single-family neighborhoods, and so there's going to be some real challenges there to meet the needs of the developers and the concerns of the citizens.
Well, several of you have mentioned the new housing developments, apartment complexes going in. Often those bring opposition from people who have lived there for a while. Ms. Johnson, how do you balance approving the developments and providing that infrastructure that you've mentioned while also considering the needs of those long-term residents?
Well, I feel like one of the easiest things in making those decisions is when the residents show up and they tell us what they're hoping for. I feel like that makes a really big difference because I like to try to listen to the residents. I feel like we need to have a long-range plan for what we want in the city, which I feel like, we have those plans. We just need to follow them. Where we have a place for the density because we are a college town. We have to have apartment complexes. But we need to be mindful of where we put them. We need to make sure that they are in a place that makes sense in the city center and have a plan for how we can adjust to the needs of our entire population so that we have housing opportunities for everyone.
Mr. Woodall, same question to you. How do you balance the newer development versus the current, residents that are living in these neighborhoods?
I think part of that is going to be you do need input from the people that live in that neighborhood. At the same time, though, another part of it as well is going to be making sure that we are working with developers. I do have a number of friends that are developers, and there definitely seems to be, in some cases, hurdles that are put in place with the city, and not necessarily even that they're over insurmountable hurdles, but the hard part is a lot of them don't necessarily feel like it's always the same way depending on if it's being zoned low density 1, low density 2, and it's frustrating for them. But then at the same time, balancing that with local residents, we have to figure out a way to make sure that they're being taken care of, that their infrastructure that they're currently using isn't being taxed too much as well. And I think that as we do grow, we do need more single-family homes. I feel really blessed in a lot of respects because we bought our home back in 2019 before everything just went absolutely crazy. But at the same time, I paid $240,000 for my home, and people are selling the same homes now for $500,000. It's definitely not necessarily affordable. So we do need to be working with developers and figuring out a way that we can bring affordable single housing, or affordable single dwelling housings, affordable multi-unit housing, as well as high density. And it's going to take working with developers, working with the city, and taking a well-rounded approach.
This is a question that came in several times in a different variety of forms, but we'll go to you, Mr. Reeser, on this one to start with. There seem to be a lot of empty and rundown buildings in Rexburg. What would you do to restore vibrancy downtown, and what other areas would you prioritize for improvement?
Well, I think in downtown that there does seem to be some, but a lot of them seem to be just under construction as well, to where the business owners and the property owners are taking care of that. But I think one of the things that could be done to help restore Main Street and its vibrancy is what's happening right now, and that is the resurfacing of the road and making sure that the infrastructure there is willing and ready to handle the kind of traffic that we would like to see in that area for those businesses. And also, we could do a study to see to make sure the infrastructure when it comes to electricity and the infrastructure when it comes to water, and those that are up to not up to code, but up to expectations, so that businesses can flourish there on Main Street, and those types of things. Parking has always been an issue as well, and I'm not sure exactly what all of those answers could be for parking. I know several different solutions have been tried for parking on Main Street to try and encourage more people to come, but that is something that certainly could be looked into, whether it's a parking garage or different types of parking, or parking around the back rather than right there on Main Street. But as far as other places in Rexburg, I wonder how First South could be utilized. I know many of the homes that used to be on First South some have been moved and are gone, and that seems to be businesses moving there. And then always down Second East. Second East seems to be our other economic corridor, and I know that there's construction there, and a lot of new businesses are going in there as well. And so I think as long as we make sure that we're up on that infrastructure and supporting those businesses as best we can, and take a planned approach to that, we should be able to encourage new businesses to come to the area as well.
Thank you. Mr. Erickson, same question to you. How do you work to restore vibrancy downtown, and what would you prioritize for improvement?
Well, there's redevelopment is a topic that certainly needs some work. We have an urban renewal district here that serves a lot of the downtown area and out north. I think we could involve the urban renewal board in helping to promote businesses. You know, I think that by and large the local businesses have done a tremendous job, especially down Main Street, of coming in and renewing the faces on their buildings. I think things are looking better than they have in the past. There's certainly room for improvement, and it does seem to take some. It's hard to promote businesses in a specific area sometimes at the cost of businesses that are out from the core, and so those things it's hard to make those things work. But I think urban renewal is certainly a tool that can be used. It's a tool that I've debated back and forth on a little bit, that sometimes can be abused, and maybe we've seen a little bit of that in the past here in Rexburg. But used properly, it can be a good tool to renovate and rejuvenate downtown area.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, what capital projects are at the top of your to-do list?
Well, at the top of my to-do list would really be not creating more projects, but getting rid of existing capital projects that the city is hemorrhaging money on, which is just increasing the taxes on our locals here, as well as increasing the effective rent because of developers having these increased effective taxes. It's looking at things like the rec center people are proposing. And I look at it and I go, why are we spending $75 million approximately on essentially an indoor pool? Doesn't make sense to me. You're going to price people out of their homes if you increase taxes like that. Now, I go, wait a second. You know what we do have? We have Rexburg Rapids. Why don't we look at the feasibility of putting up a steel erection building around it for a fraction of the cost in order to better promote the use of it year-round? Now it's no longer this 2 months out of the year, if you're there at the right time. Now it's, oh cool, this is year-round and it's being used. As well though, I do want to see some of the city capital that could be saved to be redirected towards our road infrastructure. It's quite poor most of the year. Luckily, we have recently redone the roads here, but it's investing a small amount of money into ways for individuals to report incidents of things like potholes, which they're a meme at this point, it's a joke, and for us to fix them in a timely manner. So that way we can have effective, better infrastructure using our capital.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Thackeray, same question to you.
So capital projects I think that Rexburg should focus on. One of them, I actually disagree. I think that the idea of an indoor center that's open year-round, that families, especially those with young children who are cooped up during the winter months, could take their kids to blow off steam, would be something that would benefit the community. We used to have Kidsburg, but for whatever reason, that isn't being renewed. So with that ending, there's a gap in recreation for young families. So I think some sort of program to help fill that need is something that we should focus on, whether it's a rec center. I know that you mentioned a $75 million price point. That was based off of a study that was done by the city. That isn't going to happen. The actual process on prices like that would need to be negotiated and put out in new legislation, whatever that would look like. Other things, I actually went to a city council meeting. It actually looks like Rexburg's budget is actually doing really well. We're taxed well under what communities in this area are. Our county taxes are a little bit higher, but that is outside of the realm of what city council can help out with. But focusing on the projects that we do have, the park that's being built out off the Teton River, I think is where it's going in. It looks like an amazing addition to the community. Continuing to grow our infrastructure like roads and whatnot so that we can help alleviate the congestion that's already there. Keeping citizens informed of what Rexburg's plan is so that they're not blindsided by those changes, I think are the most important things that we should focus on with Rexburg's money.
Thank you. You both mentioned the rec center, the rec district. Mr. Thackeray, you're in favor of it, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Martin, you're opposed to it.
Correct.
I'd like to ask the other four candidates up here, starting with Mr. Erickson. Do you support an indoor rec center creating a rec district?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
You've got 2 minutes to unload it.
I certainly support a recreation district. I think that's something that could be managed and handled to provide funding for a lot of things: parks, trails, bicycle lanes, all of those things that I think need to be improved. Now, whether you take the leap from there to bonding for a recreation center, that's where I have to kind of deviate a little bit. I'm not sure that that we can afford the cost of a recreation center right now. But there's, studies can be done. There may be some way of bringing in private money to help fund something like that. But those things are all going to have to be studied. Again, the rec district, I would be okay. I think I'd go along with that. But the additional cost and bonding, and then the increased cost to each individual family to participate, from what I understand, is going to be a burden. So, more study.
All right, Ms. Johnson.
So first I wanted to clarify, I feel like we're talking about a rec district and a rec center as the same thing, so I just wanted to make sure the rec district would be something that would be on the ballot, and residents could choose to form a rec district, and after the district was formed, then the residents could vote if they wanted the rec center. The city right now is actually not involved in whether it happens or not. The city did pay for a feasibility study to see if it was even feasible to build a rec center. I will say I was disappointed that the only option that was offered from our feasibility study was one that I feel is not affordable for our residents, so I do disagree with what was presented. I think that comes at a cost that we just can't afford. I do agree with providing recreational opportunities for our residents, but in a way that we can afford. So I believe in building more parks and trails. If the time came that a small indoor pool was affordable, that would be great. I don't feel that even that is affordable for our residents right now, so I would rather focus on recreational opportunities that we can afford, more parks, more trails. And Kidsburg, sadly, that our contract expired with them and it wasn't possible to renew it, so if anyone's wondering why Kidsburg went away, that's why. So.
Thank you. Mr. Reeser.
Yeah, I also agree with having a recreation district, and I think we should take our cue from the way the school districts kind of run when it comes to this rec center and the feasibility of the rec center, and that is just what the city has proposed to turn it over to the voters. When we look at building a new school in Madison School District or surrounding school district, those bonds that would be sold to raise the money to do that has to be approved directly by the voters. And I would think that something like this amount, this type of a building I would like to see it approved by the voters in that way rather than directly from the city council. I also agree that I'd love to have some of these opportunities. I mean, everybody, we all know what it's like to be in Rexburg in February, and it'd be wonderful to have these things, but we also have to make those hard choices between things that we need and things that we want. And sometimes, especially in difficult economic times, right now we're struggling with a little inflation, it might not be the best time. But then maybe down the line, if we have a rec district, we can, again, look at the feasibility of all that and then put it before the voters. Put it before the voters that are going to be directly impacted by higher taxes and see what they think. And see, because they're the ones that are going to have to bear the brunt. They're the ones that are going to have to pay the cost.
Thank you. And Mr. Woodall, your thoughts on the rec district and rec center?
You know, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. I've got a 4-year-old son. I'd love to have somewhere else for him to recreate during the winter when it's cold outside. But at the same time, though, we need to figure out a way to not burden the taxpayer with it, and it ultimately needs to be the decision of the taxpayer whether or not we end up providing a recreation center here in Rexburg. I think, too, we need to make sure that if we do it, that it is feasible, that it isn't something that is going to be burdening the city. One of the big complaints with Rexburg Rapids has been that the overall cost of it doesn't justify how much money is being brought in by it. And that's a little bit difficult. I think a lot of people, that's a hard pill to swallow after seeing the cost of Rexburg Rapids compared to what it brings in. Likewise as well, like I'm definitely not in favor of new bonds for a rec center. I don't want to see my property taxes go up, and I don't think any of us want to see our property taxes go up. And I think too, like I was meeting with officials at the city the other day, and I think that they are aware of that and they are listening to the voters on that. They are looking at different ways to fund it rather than just raising our taxes. So hopefully we can figure out a way to do it. I think we'd all love to see more recreation. That's one of the reasons that we brought the indoor range here to Rexburg. We want somewhere to recreate and have fun during the winter. But that doesn't come at the cost of the taxpayers.
Thank you. All right, well, another hot topic in the questions that came in, snow removal. Mr. Thackeray, what are your thoughts on snow removal in Rexburg? Is it going well, or do more resources need to be allocated? And if so, what would you do?
Snow removal in Rexburg. I think that it's gotten better in recent years. I think when I moved here, I remember there was a really bad problem with the roads just ending up iced over. It does look like they have changed the way that their snow removal process has gone through. I do know that we need to take more care on certain areas. I can't remember which road it is, but there's one where an apartment complex went in and cast the road in shadow, and that place gets so slick during the winter, and it doesn't seem like they focus that. It's not where they put down salt and sand regularly. So I think being informed on who's having issues with it and applying additional resources where needed, because the roads I drive, I haven't had any issues, but it doesn't mean that other people aren't running into those. So finding ways to have the citizens keep us informed, because there's only so much 6 people or 5 people sitting on a council can do. There's only so much they can see. We need the feedback from the citizens in order to make changes. So moral of the story, I'm more or less pleased with how the snow is being handled, but if people are having issues, we need to find out what those issues are and take care of them.
Mr. Woodall, same question to you.
So I think with snow removal, the biggest thing is we need to figure out ways to do it more efficiently. One of the issues that I've heard talking with people within the city is that we've got snow removal equipment, we've got personnel to remove snow off of the roads, but it's a matter of we've got so much road and only so much equipment and only so many people. So it's either going to be a matter of, cutting projects that might be luxuries right now so that we can invest in equipment and personnel in order to maintain our roads better. I think at the same time too, it's definitely difficult for everybody driving during the winter. It's definitely a frustration that everybody has. I have a lot of employees that are from all over the country. I've got employees that are from Idaho Falls, and the consistent complaint that I hear is, how do we make the roads better? There's a lot of other places here locally that do a great job of it. Rexburg, I think, does an amazing job with it, given the resources that they have. But I would like to see more money spent on snow removal and spent on equipment so that we can maintain our roads properly and bring more people and more businesses into Rexburg.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, BYU-Idaho is a big part of the Rexburg community. How do you balance the needs of students, many of whom are here temporarily, with the needs of permanent residents, and what is the city's role in that?
So really the city's role in that is what it's going to come down to, as you're saying. It's a unique culmination of understanding that most of our money in our community is coming from those students who are coming in with exterior money from other states, or there's other student programs. They fill a lot of our lower paying jobs in the community. So they're an important keystone. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge we have a sizable and growing permanent resident base here that don't always mix well with that student community. So with that in mind, the city's job in that is providing housing without having to remove existing housing by zoning up undeveloped land, so that way single family homes aren't priced out of right now, which a lot of people are. As was mentioned by some other candidates, inflation's happening, there's higher interest rates. So we need to build more, encourage developers to come in, so that way when those students are here, they'll stay here and become residents, instead of them just leaving our community without actually benefiting the community in a long-term manner. So we want them to become part of it and to share our values that we have as America's family town. Now, the city needs to do this. Simply, it's a zoning issue. That's what it comes down to. It's a zoning issue and then also a parking issue. The city's made exemptions for parking in the past that, quite simply, have damaged our parking situation for permanent residents trying to shop in the city centers. So there's a few different things we can do there to solve that long-term and growing problem.
Thank you. Mr. Reeser, same question to you.
One of the things I think the most important thing that the city can do is to welcome BYU-Idaho students when they come in. I see BYU-Idaho students as several thousand economic engines that come into our city every semester. They come here, they shop at our stores, they pay sales taxes, they purchase the goods that our businesses have for sale, they provide money to landlords, and the institution that they go to school in provides a number of jobs for the people, full-time, good-paying jobs for the people in our community. I know it can be very frustrating. I mean, those of us that have lived in Rexburg any period of time, we know exactly when the 7-week break is. There's a spirit in the air when it's the 7-week break, and it's wonderful. But the reality is, if we were to think of what our town would be like without Brigham Young University, Idaho, it would be very, very different. And so even though that does come with challenges, I believe that they're positive challenges to be solved rather than what can we do to minimize, what can we do to restrict, what can we do to harness the energy, what can we do to harness all of this economic, I don't even know how to describe it, what they can bring to us. And so I think that if we handle this in a little bit more positive manner and realize what BYU-Idaho has done for our town, then maybe some new solutions could come on how we can better see the students, better see the university, because I really see it as one of the main economic engines that really drives our economy here.
Thank you. Mr. Erickson. Do you believe the city needs to do more in creating public transportation options for residents, and if so, how?
That's a tough question. The question presents itself, is that the proper role of government to provide public transportation? I think certainly there should be some private entities out there that could be brought on board to help provide public transportation. There may be room for some subsidy to that, to a public entity where to promote public transportation. But I'm not sure that that's the city's role to go out and provide that at this time. That being said, there are other things that I think we can do to promote other forms of transportation in the city, such as increased bicycle lanes. I know that there's going to be 3 months out of the year they're not going to be able to be used, but it seems like there's always a bicycle I see out in the middle of in a blinding snowstorm in Rexburg. But bicycle lanes is something we can promote to help the transportation issues. I think a better trail system in the city and in the county would help. But as far as the actual expenditures directly on public transportation, I think we leave that to the to the private sector.
Ms. Johnson, go ahead if you want. We have great locations for parks. This is another viewer question already established in Rexburg. Why can we not update the playgrounds we have before starting to build other ones? What is the role of the council in this area?
Thank you. So I feel strongly about parks. I feel like we need parks for our children. We have so many children here. We have actually updated some of our current parks since I've been on the council. We just updated Nature Park a year and a half ago about. We have put in some other things at other parks to try to spruce them up. So we have actually been trying to update our parks, but I feel like we actually need more parks because We don't have enough of them. We have areas in our city where families they're not within walking distance to a park. So I feel like that's why we need more. But we have worked to update the parks that we do currently have too.
All right, Mr. Thackeray, how would you work to help the community create safer traffic conditions at crosswalks for both pedestrians and drivers?
I think there's two main things that you would need to focus with that. First is studies on traffic. Where is there high pedestrian traffic? Where is there high vehicle traffic? And find out where those places intersect, and then make sure that we have the adequate facilities installed, crosswalks and whatnot, so that we're not putting the residents in danger. And then the second, so that I really think that I want to push forward, is that we keep a finger to the pulse of the community. Find out where people are complaining, where are the stress points. Because unless we as a community make problems known, it's hard for the city council to take care of them. So listening to the community's complaints, keeping open channels so that people can inform us of areas that need to be taken care of, and then keeping the community informed and moving forward with those inquiries that are put forward.
Well, it's hard to believe that we are nearly out of time, not town. We are in America's family town. Here's what we'll ask each of you to do is give us 2 minutes for your closing statement. Mr. Erickson, we will start with you again and go down the line.
Thank you. Well, thank you first of all to the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this event tonight, and those sponsors that have provided some funding. Thank you to the other candidates for their desire to improve our community. There's, of course, that old African adage, it takes a village to raise a child. We certainly have a wonderful village here in Rexburg. And it's important that the citizens participate in the improvement of our community. Having served on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I've seen that those that, in my backyard, they'll be there to meetings and express their opinions. But by and large, there's just not enough participation from the public. And that's what's going to make Rexburg a better place. So I'm committed to helping improve the communication with the citizens of Rexburg so that we can develop together a vision for what we want Rexburg to be. We're going to be facing some tremendous growth over the next several years, I'm sure. And we've got to have a vision of what we want, where we want to be, and what we want to see. Just remind you, engage Rexburg, please participate, get in there. I look forward to the opportunity of representing you as the ultimate stakeholders in this process, and appreciate your vote on November 7th. Thank
you, Ms. Johnson.
I'd also like to thank the Chamber. I'd like to thank all of you for showing up and listening to us for this long. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates on the stage. I feel like it's very refreshing to have civil debate in the public eye, and I'm so thankful that we can do that here in Rexburg. I really have loved serving on the City Council for the last 4 years. I feel like I've done my best. I've done my best to listen to the residents. I've done my best to learn what I could so that I could try and do a good job. I really do care about this community. I am so thankful for our police and our fire departments, and I am committed to giving them what they need so they can keep serving us. I'm committed to trying to keep stable neighborhoods so that we have space for our families to grow and our children to play safely. I am committed to continuing to try to provide affordable recreation opportunities and cultural arts opportunities for our residents and more parks. I feel like one of most comforting things that I've learned in the last 4 years is that being on a city council is a team sport. You have to know how to listen to the people that you're working with. You have to be able to cooperate, be civil, and work together. And most importantly, you have to learn how to listen to the residents. And it's such a wonderful thing to know that I don't have to have all the solutions, I just have to be willing to listen. I can think of so many times when it's been our residents who have offered the solutions that we need to the problems that we face. And I would just really love to keep serving all of you. I've really enjoyed it, and so I would really appreciate your vote again.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
So once again, I would also like to thank the Chamber and the sponsors of this event, and you as well, Nate, for moderating this. Now, really, I don't need a full 2 minutes to summarize my points. It's keep property taxes low, keep values traditional, and let Rexburg be America's family town.
All right, Mr. Reeser.
Yes, thank you for the organizers of this and for the other candidates up here as well. It's been a great evening to get to know the candidates a little bit better. I started out this evening talking about the reasons why I've decided to run for city council, but there's another factor for my decision to run, and that's my students. I teach at Madison High School, and I may or may not have assigned something for them to do during this debate. But I teach at Madison High School, and I teach government, and I teach classes on the Holocaust. And in my government classes, all of us government teachers, one of the things that we do for their senior project is a project called Project Citizen, where students go out into their community and they identify public policy problems, challenges, and then they research, they dig in, they interview people, they talk to people, they do research. And then they start to develop possible solutions to this problem, and then they figure out what they think is best. And then they do what I feel is the most important element of Project Citizen, and that is they identify which government has authority over that, because it has to be a public policy problem. And then they learn how that government functions, and they learn how citizens, ordinary citizens like themselves, can influence government to act, and act in a way that they would like to act in this representative democracy. And then they present, and it's a wonderful thing, and I've been doing this for 20 years now. And I've often been asked by my students if I've ever run for public office, and not until terribly recently I hadn't, but I've run for the library board, and I've twice been elected to the library board, and now I've decided to run for city council. And one of the main reasons why is because I teach these kids every day that it's important to be an active, informed citizen. And much of the time that activity is just voting or advocating for your cause, but sometimes when you have that opportunity, it's also important to get out there and to run. And that's why I'm running. I'm running for the students of Madison High School. I'm running for the citizens of Rexburg. And I hope that you would consider voting for me on November the 7th.
Thank you. Mr. Thackeray.
I likewise want to thank the organizers of the event. It's been very enlightening being part of this open discussion. One of the most important things that I want to focus on if I get elected is finding balance. Because one thing through this discussion and then just volunteering in the local community, I find that there's many different groups of people that all have different wants and desires. You have the small business people, you have the students, you have the residents, and usually people are just trying to help, but it's funny how often you can end up stepping on someone's toes. And so the main way to avoid that is to make sure that all parties have a voice. And so that's one thing that I really want to focus is community outreach and studies and having the knowledge on how to put forth policy that helps everyone, that doesn't step on toes, that when you're trying to fix a problem, you don't create three more. On that, I know I did talk in favor of some sort of indoor winter recreation available to the citizens. I want to make sure that it doesn't price anyone out of homes. It's not a financial burden. It's done in a way that is legal and as unobstructive as possible. It just takes care of a need in the community. And by being a member of the community, keeping a finger to the pulse of the community, and listening to all of them, I think that the City Council can put forth policy that really does help lift Rexburg to what it's always meant to be, which is, I would consider it the hub of Southeast Idaho. This is where I chose to raise my family, and I want it to continue to be a place where I want to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Woodall.
First off, I want to thank the organizers of the event. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on, thank East Idaho News, and most of all, I want to thank you guys for coming out tonight. Ultimately, the reason that I want to run for City Council, the reason that I am running for City Council is because we've got a lot of exciting, fun, and challenging things ahead of us. I think that we need a diversity, we need some more background to City Council. It's a little bit different than what we have right there. I feel like I can safely say I'm one of the few people sitting up here right now that's had to make some really big decisions as far as developing projects in Rexburg goes. I understand the frustrations from both developers and citizens when developing those projects, and I want to help us have that sustainable growth, but do it responsibly. Likewise, I want to make sure that as we do grow, that we're not burdening taxpayers, that we're not putting all of that back into property taxes, we're not putting it into fees, we're not putting it into levies, and we're not putting it into bonds. I want to make sure that we maintain traditional family values here in Rexburg, that we keep that culture that we all love. I think it's the reason that all of us are raising families here in Rexburg and the reason that we've chosen to put down roots here in Rexburg. And I want to make sure that we have a community that we can look back on and say we did everything that we could to make sure that we can grow it responsibly, and that we did grow it responsibly. And I just want to thank everyone again for coming out, and I really look forward to hearing from you guys and hearing what you guys think is important in the city and what we can do to build Rexburg up and grow our city.
Thank you. Can we have a round of applause for all of our candidates? Now, each of the candidates have completed forms that East Idaho News sent them. They've been posted so far this week, some of them, and they'll continue into the weekend. You can read more about the candidates and, of course, chat with them directly. We're going to take a 10-minute break, reset the stage for the mayoral candidate forum. So join us back here around 8:15. Thank you. gentlemen, welcome back to the Romance Theater in Rexburg. We are here with the mayoral candidates as part of a Meet the Candidates Forum brought to you tonight by the Rexburg Area Chamber of Commerce. We want to thank our sponsors, Taylor Chevrolet, ICCU, the Raybould Family Farms, and Citizens Community Bank. This is being live streamed on eastidahonews.com, on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel. We appreciate you all being here. We have a full house here in the Romance Theater, or an almost full house. Before we get going with the questions, I do want to read a statement we received from BYU-Idaho following a statement that was made at the last forum a few minutes ago. It says, BYU-Idaho does not plan to double its campus enrollment within the next 4 years, as claimed by a city council candidate at the Rexburg Meet the Candidates event tonight. With that, we are going to jump right into our opening statements. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to each of the candidates will have 1 minute for an opening statement. We will then ask a series of questions that have been submitted by people living in Rexburg. And at the end of those questions, you will have 2 minutes to respond. Some of the questions will be for all of you. Some will be specifically for each of you. When we are done with the question period, you will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. So with that, we will go in alphabetical order. We have here tonight Luke Evans, Mike Glasscock, and Mayor Jerry Mayoral. He is the incumbent for running for mayor. Mr. Evans, we will start with you and your opening statement.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can't see many of you, but grateful to be here. Thank you for staying extra. I'm excited to be here. As you can tell, we're all a handsome group up here on the stage, and a lot of us have a lot of things in common, as I think you probably, if you were here last time, or before this. However, we all have different backgrounds, and my only thing to you this evening is just be open, be open-minded, maybe have an open heart, listen to what each one has to say, and vote responsibly. I'm a local. I'm from Southeast Idaho. I've literally lived in every city in Southeast Idaho, from here down to Pocatello, and I'm excited to be here. Rexburg is a place that I call home, and I'm excited to be with you this evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Glasscock.
My name is Mike Glasscock. I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting this together, and thank you for being here. Tonight we're going to get to talk about the future of Rexburg, about the growth of Rexburg, and how we see that and how we can help that to happen as we work together. My background is in social services. I worked in social services for a couple of decades. My education is in business, and I'm happy to be here.
And Mayor Mayoral.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the Chamber also for putting this on, and all of you for being here. Thankful to the sponsors. We appreciate them. And thank you, Mr. Nate Eaton, for being here. Hopefully we will be better behaved than the presidential candidates have been so far. But the first thing I would like to say is I love my job. I'm excited to be running for the office of mayor of Rexburg. And the last 8 years has been wonderfully interesting and challenging. It's really made me stretch out of my comfort zone in a lot of ways. Some nights, city council can be a little uncomfortable, and I don't like uncomfortable situations, but we work through those. If someone would have told me what 2020 was going to be like, I may not have run for re-election in 2019, but we got through it, and things have been good. So we've accomplished a lot, but we still have a lot more to accomplish, and that's why I'm running again, because I would like to see those things through and keep that momentum going. Thank you.
Thank you. And gentlemen, you will notice on the front row we have somebody keeping time, so you will have a cue when you have 15 seconds and then a big red stop sign when you need to wrap it up. This first question is for all of you. Mayor Mayoral, we will start with you. Rexburg is one of the fastest growing cities in the state. Is the city managing its population growth well, and where can it improve? You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. That's a great question. We are growing rapidly, and I think overall we've been doing a pretty good job. It's a big challenge with a lot of opportunities and a lot of things that we've got to worry about that we're doing right. We've planned for a lot of growth, and we're trying to get out in front of it. When you're looking at 20 to 30 years in the future, it's difficult. We don't have a crystal ball, but we try to plan the best we can. And it's always difficult to cite new roads and new neighborhoods and things because, it disrupts people's lives, and we understand that. But we always, my goal is to listen and try to learn from people, and you've got to take all of the facts into consideration and then just try to make the best decision that we can. And I like what was said earlier during the city council comments, and that is that, it's a team effort, and that's one of the things I try to work hard at, is taking everybody's opinions and things into consideration, and then trying to come up with the best solution that we can. And oftentimes, as was mentioned, residents have really good ideas, and we're always open to ideas, and we try to vet those out and look at different thoughts and ideas and try to see what we can do to make our growth happen in the best way possible.
Mr. Glasscock.
I look at growth as a great opportunity. I think it's exciting that we're going to get to basically expand our city and build a lot more of it. What we need for the growth is a well thought out plan. I think a lot of the problems that we talk about and that we see, like extending roads through people's houses and having to take away part of a church's award building's lawn so that we could put a road through, it all stems from not having a well thought out plan. And so that's one of the things that I would like to work on. We do have a new comprehensive plan. It's a little vague in some places. I think that we can do better. The good thing about it is that it says that we can change it whenever we want. And that's one of the things that I would like to do. It's sort of a living document where we can change it. We also need to work on the building code. We need to work on the planning and zoning board. They need to understand that that as they approve higher densities, it needs to be in coordination with the comprehensive plan. We need a zoning map that we all agree on. And all these things need to come together so that we can look into the future and see what our city's going to look like. Now, a lot of times people will think, well, what do we care? We're going to be dead in 40 or 50 years. Why would we care what's going to happen then? But I disagree with that completely. I think that we should have a plan that is good for the next 10, 15, 20, or 75 years. And in order to do that, we need the public's ideas. We need their approval, and we need them to help us make that plan.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's a good question. I want to build upon what was already spoken of. I think with growth, there's a lot of challenges. However, there's a lot of great opportunity as well. I've got a very diverse background in many different fields, one of them being real estate. And I agree, with what Mike said. We've got to figure out a way that will not only benefit the citizens of this small community, but also outlying areas and things as we grow and as we expand. I think a big thing too here is to bring in some businesses, give them some opportunities that they actually want to come here, that we can not only have that growth within our communities just as people move in, but some of these businesses too. I've been an entrepreneur for, I want to say practically my whole life. And I love looking for opportunities to serve and to find solutions to problems. I know one was mentioned for the city candidates, for the city council earlier, about some ways to kind of help with like traffic and things like that. I decided about a year ago to open up a little taxi service here in town, and that has been a great opportunity not only to serve residents of Rexburg, but also to hear their feedback. Apart from the potholes, which I agree with wholeheartedly, we need to do something about that. There's a lot of concern. And I just feel like as we come together, as we look for ways to find solutions to these issues, that we'll be able to do that collectively. It's not a Luke Evans only type thing. It's not Mike or Jerry. It's actually all of us working together to find solutions to some of these issues and keeping an open mind as we strive to move forward.
Mr. Glasscock, what capital projects are at the top of your to-do list?
Well, it turns out that there are some capital projects going on right now in the downtown area. that is being looked into. The first thing that they're trying to do is put up a parking lot to kind of help with the parking downtown. I don't know if you know it or not, but from the University North to Main Street, that's all supposed to be a walking area. That's planned to be walking and to have shops there. We're trying to build a better downtown. We're trying to revitalize that. It's going to take some time. We certainly have more needs than we have money right now. And so that kind of goes back to the idea of we need a plan that we can just do what we can, when we can, and when we have the money, and then go forward with that and build on that as we go and try to make the downtown better for everybody.
Mayor Mayoral, what is a capital project that you hope to accomplish if reelected in the next 4 years that maybe you didn't get done your previous term?
That's a great question, and Mike actually alluded to that. We have our downtown project that we've been working on for a long time, and when you're working with property owners in an area, it takes a long time. You know, people sometimes don't really want to sell, and we don't want to force them to sell, and so we work with them over the years, and we've slowly been working with the property owners downtown in that area, and we are at this point just working on a request for proposals to send out to developers to be able to build a fairly large building that has some business space on the bottom and a parking lot, a multi-level parking structure, and then also an apron around the outside that has more space for offices so that businesses can locate here, more businesses, because right now we don't have a lot of space for businesses to locate in, so we're working on that. And then it could possibly even have some living space on the top floors, maybe some apartments or condominiums or things like that. So that's the one that I'd really like to see get pushed over the finish line. And there's several others. We've got our river park that we have purchased the property, and we're looking at getting that starting on that with phase 1. It's going to be a multi-year project, but we'll start on phase 1 probably this next summer and start getting that going. So, and then of course sewer lines. What's more exciting than sewer lines, right? We got a new sewer line and an upgrade to our sewer treatment plant that needs to be done, and so that's one of the other capital improvement items that we need to do. And water, there's always water projects that come up that need to be done, and so there's just a lot of things that I'd like to see finished up, and I'm excited to try to get them pushed over the finish line.
Mr. Evans, what capital projects would be your priority?
I agree with some of the sentiments that have already been shared. Coming from a real estate background, I feel like there's some great opportunity. They talk about urban renewal. Essentially, for those that aren't familiar with that, kind of my understanding is urban renewal is essentially to beautify the parts of the city that are a little bit maybe older in nature, if we can say it that way. And I've been a part of some of those discussions over the last few years, and I think there's some great opportunity for growth there. The roads specifically, I personally would like to see us take back 2nd East and Main Street. That's right now pretty much the state's job to do that, Highway 33. I would like to have ownership of that for the city and find ways to, kind of mitigate some of those issues on those roads. Coming from, kind of a small, tiny construction background, I used to flip a lot of houses and stuff over the last couple decades, and I find that if you have a good, solid foundation, you can build upon that. I feel like some of these roads, we need to just rip them up and literally get down a couple feet and start to build those up the correct way so that we don't have all these issues and further repairs, costly repairs, as we move forward. Obviously, the traffic here has increased, and of course, not only when the students are here, but when other people come in from out of state to travel and they're heading up north. Just find ways to be able to work on those streets and get them repaired in a timely manner, but also in a time frame that isn't so problematic with rain and or snow. Those are kind of some big issues that I'd like to see improved on.
We spoke about at the City Council Forum the rec district and the rec center, and I would like to ask each of you if, one, you support a rec district, And in turn, if that is approved, then support having a rec center, an indoor rec center. Mayor Mayoral, we'll start with you.
Yes, I do support the rec district. I do believe that it would be good to be able to have that function, to be able to put things before the voters and to be able to let them determine what kind of recreational facilities we would like to have and build here in Rexburg. And as was mentioned before, it can be used for trails and different things that people deem desirable. And those things can be really establish your place. Or in order to establish new businesses, as has been mentioned, the businesses that call us, the first thing they ask is, how are your schools? So we need to focus on having good schools, which we do. We have great schools. And the second thing they ask is, what kind of amenities do you have for families? Because they need to have a workforce, but they want to have a workforce that wants to move here and live here. So if we don't have some decent amenities, and an indoor rec center, as was mentioned, would be great. As was also mentioned, it turned out to be way more expensive than we hoped. So we're going to have to look at a lot of alternatives. And we actually have been talking to, we've got every option on the table. We've been talking to a local private business, actually, that is kind of looking at possibly partnering with the city or something to do an indoor pool that would serve his constituents, his business people, as well as be open to the public. So, and that's just one thing that's kind of been floating around as ideas that we've talked with people about. And so there's all kinds of ideas, and everything's on the table. So we're willing to listen and look for grants, donations, all kinds of things that could help get those kind of things done. So that's where I'm at on that. Yeah.
Mr. Evans?
I've thought about this. Actually, we've had this brought up to us for probably a couple months now, and the more I think about it, I would say I'm opposed to it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not open to discussion on how we can serve some of these needs in the community. I feel with a lot of local businesses, for example, down as we get further south, there's a credit union that built a very nice place down south, and I think there's some opportunities to work with some of these businesses to maybe help us offset some of those costs. It's very expensive. I lived in a community here just west of town, and they have an indoor heated swimming pool. And I was talking to one of the individuals that works over there in that facility, and he says it's very costly each month to keep that water at a certain temperature. And of course, they do a great job to clean it, every week or so, and shut it down and make sure everything's up to par there. However, it's very expensive. So I'm the type of person that I'm just a simple numbers guy. My dad taught me years back that if you don't have money for things, you don't buy it. I think for whatever reason, with the growth, I think we're trying to overspend what we really have allotted to us. I don't feel like it's fair to tax the citizens for certain things of this nature. I think there's better ways to go about it. And again, kind of going back to some of these places here in town, perhaps local credit unions or banks or whatnot, that can help us raise some of those funds for some of those things.
Mr. Glasscock.
So a tax district, now I have to admit that I'm on the outside looking in. So I don't really have the advantage of knowing all the details, but in my opinion, a tax district is a taxing entity, which means that they can work to levy taxes on their own. Currently, the Parks and Recreation part of Rexburg is under the umbrella of the city. But if we take that out and we make a separate tax district, then the Parks and Recreation will be under that, and they can lobby and they can ask you for bonds, and then you'll have an extra payment on your property tax. Now, this rec center that I think we're talking about is a very expensive proposition. I think the first time I saw it was $68 million. Well, we have an aging wastewater treatment plant that needs to be fixed, and some other things that we need to work on. And $86 million is, I think, a bridge too far. And so the city, wisely, I would say, decided to kind of abandon that and just put it up to the voters. And so you're probably going to see that on the ballot on November 7th. I sort of followed it a little bit. I think they had to get 1,200 votes or 1,400 or signatures or 1,400, quite a few, but it's for the county, it's for the whole county, and I think they may have actually got the number of signatures they need. I am opposed to it. I just think it's too much money. I just don't think that we can afford that right now.
Switching gears, earlier this year, an LGBTQ pride event was held at Porter Park. There was some public outcry and a protest about drag queens in attendance. This was not a city-sponsored event, but some feel the city should not have allowed it to happen. Others say Rexburg should be inclusive to everyone and support more events like this. This is, again, a question for all of you. Mr. Evans, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. So obviously I was not a part of that, and I do agree with you on we should be inclusive of everyone. However, that doesn't mean that we necessarily agree with what they do. For me personally, I kind of feel like, a lot of us, we strive to listen to the needs of individuals in our community. And there's a majority, and there are some that maybe you'd classify in a minority. And to me, I feel like the values that I grew up with, that's what I'm about. I'm all for let you worship how, where, what you may, but within reason and within the law and doing things civilly and peacefully. That's my stand on that.
Mr. Glasscock.
Yeah, recently, as you mentioned, they had some kind of a conference here or something. I think it was sort of a surprise to us. I would like to say that I think Mayor Mayoral did an excellent job of kind of handling that, sort of doing the best he could to not let it get too far out of hand. But there's not a whole lot we can do because in this country we have free speech. They have the right to say what they want to say, because if they don't have the right to say what they want to say, then I don't have the right to say what I want to say. So there's kind of a trade-off there. Now, having said that, I have my rights too, and I want to know where my rights are to be with my children and my grandchildren without having them exposed to something that I find morally repugnant. It's just bad. So there's kind of a fine line that we're going to have to walk here with this, and they have this group has found their way into government and into the White House and everywhere, and they have actually become a protected group, which means that you have to be careful about what you do to try to keep them out of certain places, like our parks. So there may be some things that we can do. This is just something that I have thought about, and I think one of the things we could do is, I only have 15 seconds, so talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you what we can do.
Can you tell us
To
in
be
10
continued.
seconds?
It is a touchy and controversial subject, Mike, and I appreciate those comments. But, it's important to understand that we as elected officials take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Idaho. We can't discriminate against certain people, but we can discriminate against certain behaviors. Those behaviors are clearly spelled out in Idaho Code 18-41. Do you think I anticipated this question? Yes, I did. That code regulates indecency and obscenity, and 18-15 establishes protection for children and vulnerable adults. In addition, as we were working with the sponsor of this of the initiative to ban these things, we found that the state actually has a code 18-4113 that actually preempts the cities and counties from enforcing their own ordinances that have to do with obscene materials. Now, the reason that is because the state wanted it to be done consistently all across the state. And the state does have rules that govern obscene, indecent, and harmful behavior to minors and vulnerable adults. And we are fully prepared to enforce those rules and laws that the state has put in place. Now, we are all in favor, I think everyone here and all the city council, we're all in favor of protecting our children and keeping Rexburg a strong, family-oriented community with wholesome activities, and we are fully committed to enforcing the laws as stated in Idaho Code. And I appreciate all of those who we were able to work together with to keep the event that happened, fairly low key, and I think we can do that in the future, and we will work to do that. Thank you.
The chamber received kind of a lengthy message from someone who said they've lived in Rexburg for 15 years, but they attended BYU-Idaho as a political science student. They went on to explain that they attended a few city council meetings, but this question, it comes down to this. Many students become long-term residents of Rexburg during and after their university schooling. I have felt that the city does not value the say of students at BYU-Idaho. Does the mayor and city council now, in 2023, feel that the say of students at BYU-Idaho has value? And the broader question could be is, if so, how do you work with the biggest institution in the city, as well as having the long-term residents who are here all the time? How do you balance that out? Mayor, we'll start with you.
Thank you. That's a great question. I actually love the BYU-Idaho students, and I love having BYU-Idaho here in town. As was stated before, they just bring a great spirit. I mean, yeah, it's two spirits. When they leave town, it's like, okay, there's less traffic and the stores are less crowded, and that's great for a little while. But when the students come back, there's an excitement in the air. We're a college town, and we need to embrace that and love it. My wife, once in a while, my beautiful wife, Marianne, she loves it too, but sometimes she gets exasperated when I say, oh, honey, by the way, I invited some BYU-Idaho students home for dinner. And she's like, she's not prepared. And so, but we've had BYU-Idaho students in our home for dinner, and they just have a great spirit about them. They have an honor code that they mostly stick with, and that helps to make our town safer. We are one of the safest communities in Idaho and in the country, and I think largely, that is because we have BYU-Idaho here. It's not the only reason, but that's a big reason why we are one of the safest communities in Idaho. And it rubs off on all of us, all of our citizens. I think try to be more law-abiding and stuff because we are in the same town as BYU-Idaho, where the standards are high, and we kind of expect each other to uphold those standards. So I would just say I'm sad to hear that some of the students feel that way, and if they do, tell them to call me. I'll invite them over for dinner.
Mr. Glasscock?
Get ready, honey. Big group coming.
Let me say that I'm very happy that BYU-Idaho is here. I'm delighted. Sometimes we kind of think, well, maybe this isn't the greatest thing when we're just trying to get a bag of frozen peas and there's a bunch of students having family home evening in the frozen food section of Walmart. But by and large, it's great having them here. And BYU is a great asset that I don't think we're utilizing enough. I think that we could get more of those students down at City Hall doing internships and working on things that have to do with projects around Rexburg, and it would help them and it would help us. I think that we should try to open up more communication with BYU and talk to them. A university in a town like this is like a miracle. People come from all over the world to go to that university, and they enrich our lives. So I think we need to continue or make greater strides in reaching out to BYU And I think maybe they might be able to help us with some of the problems that we're working on. Like I mentioned the wastewater treatment plant, which is not a very fun thing to talk about, I admit. But, and they probably won't be able to do that, but the young people of today they're just unbelievable with the things that they can do. And I would like to see more interaction with them.
Mr. Evans.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I am an entrepreneur at heart. I think it's very important to reach out to these students. You know, I'm a firm believer that you're never too old and you're never too young to learn and or to teach. And that kind of comes from one of my mentors, Jack Canfield, who's Chicken Soup for the Soul, that whole big series that he did. And I trained with him many years ago. And as a success coach, as a trainer, like you get to meet a lot of people from a lot of different places, different cultures, different backgrounds, different countries, different states. And I think it's very essential, and like Mike pointed out, we have people from all over the world, really. I taxi some of these individuals, and I love to hear their feedback, to get to know them, to see what drives them. And I think really when it comes down to it, we all pretty much have the same goals. You know, we really want what's best for one another, we want what's best for our children, and we especially want what's best for our community. And I think having the BYU-Idaho students on board, you know, and even at some of these meetings for the city, to kind of pick their brains, to see what it is that they can lend a hand in. So many of them are eager to serve. Quite frankly, that's why I'm here. I love serving. It's amazing what you can do when you work together collectively for a common goal.
Another question from the public. Some public officials portray that everything is fine and we live in Mayberry, that you should that they only share good news with residents and the media, that crimes and misconduct should be downplayed or not shared at all. Do you agree with this, and how would you handle a negative situation that happens in our community? Mr. Evans, we'll start with you.
Yeah, great question. It's a touchy subject. I believe in honesty. You know, it's funny, I mean, I was looking at stats, I was reading them online somewhere, and I don't know the exact one, Nate, I know you'll probably quiz me. But I think it said like somewhere from 65 to 70% of adults lie, you know, one time or another in their life. And as children trying to steal cookies out of the cookie jar, I'm sure one or two of us, me included, has probably fibbed on something. However, I feel like open and honest communication is key, and we need to talk about things that are of big concerns. I see huge things of great concern, not only as a taxi driver, but just as a concerned citizen. In our community, we have one of the highest poverty rates. I believe that study was conducted by Staker, however you pronounce that. We have 39.3%. We're the highest in the state of Idaho, the city of Rexburg, in poverty. Now, of course, poverty, what does that mean? That's, you know, food, clothing, shelter, things of that nature. But it's more than that. We really struggle, I feel, to produce jobs that pay at a wage that can help our citizens. And I think that's a huge aspect here as well. So again, going back to honest and open and honest communication, and talking about things that are issues, and not trying to hide them or cover them up. There's a lot of stuff that happens that we don't know about, good and bad. And again, not to focus in on the negative, but to be aware of it and to take, you know, I don't know, maybe calculated risks even, to be able to help mitigate some of those issues and talk to our citizens. I think the biggest thing is to be informed. I think a lot of people weren't aware, I wasn't until a few months back, that we have one of the highest poverty rates in the entire state. It's very important to look at what is in front of us and to communicate that effectively with one another.
Mayor Mayoral.
Okay, I'm going to stand up, but I feel like the little kid who they have to lower the podium for in church. You guys are all taller than me. But anyway, yeah, that's a good question. It really is, and it's kind of a touchy subject. It really, you know, when you're talking about crimes, then, you know, obviously we need to be as transparent as we possibly can. And if there are crimes taking place that are going to affect citizens and their safety and things like that, we need to be able to make those known so that people can take, you know, their own proper precautions and things. But I'd like to actually give a shout out to our city attorney, Stephen Zollinger. I've seen him look at a situation And he works with the prosecutors, and he's looked at situations where, is this situation going to ruin this young man's life? And if it's going to have a very severe impact on his life, and of course it depends on the situation, but if it's something that is one of those things that many times we all do as teenagers, or stupid things that we do, he has always tried to weigh those things and say, is this something that we really need to splash all over the newspapers, or is this something that can be handled in a more confidential manner, because it really won't affect the public at large, but it could have a major effect on this person's life. And I think those are things that we always have to take those situations just case by case by case. We have to apply the law, but we can also apply justice and mercy at the same time, and try to be able to help someone become better and climb out of maybe that cycle of poverty, as Luke mentioned, or the cycle of crime and things that they might be in, and try to help them get rehabilitated and become a productive member of society.
Mr. Glasscock?
Thank you. I'm not sure exactly. I want to say a little something about the poverty level. It depends largely on how it's calculated. Back in the day, a person who received food stamps, for instance, had to be available for full-time work. I'm not sure if the regulations have changed on that. Today, a person that's receiving food stamps may be a student who just is not working, not earning money because they're a student, and they're just taking advantage of the laws that they have, that they're entitled to. So I'm not sure about how that actually works with those numbers. I would like to say something about crime. When we first moved here, we moved here in 2014, and I would take a look at the paper, and there would be some guy on the paper that did a crime that where I'm from wouldn't even make the paper, but he's on the front page. And I think Mayor Mayoral makes a good point that there has to be some discretion there. But I had a friend that he sent his son here, and I just is in this semester right now, and I just told him straight up. I said, "You get in trouble here, and you're going to be famous." That's just the way it is. So that, I think, helps us to keep our city safe. And the last thing I want to say about this is that we, as the mayor or as a city council or as a citizens, have to, in order to keep our city together, we have to have law and order. There has to be law and order. That has to be a hallmark for this city. Because if you look around the country, you turn on the TV and you see the news, and you're going to find out what happens if we don't have law and order. And so, if you do the crime, you're going to get punished.
Mr. Glasscock, what is your biggest concern for Rexburg, and how do you plan to address it?
Sorry, would you repeat that? I was busy clapping.
It's all right. For Mr. Glasscock, this
Yes.
question, your biggest concern for Rexburg, and how would you plan to address it?
Okay. Let me say something about apartments. I think the new comprehensive plan, if you do the math, says that we have about 60% apartments and 40% detached single-family dwellings. And I'm going to call those traditional neighborhoods, okay? And when I say traditional neighborhoods, that's what I'm talking about, single-family dwellings. That's difficult to get companies to come here and bring their business here because there's not a workforce. If you have 60% of your people in apartments, you have a transitional workforce, which means that they're going to come and go, and somebody else is going to come and rent that apartment. Now, obviously, we have BYU-Idaho, but even with BYU-Idaho, that's a lot of apartments. And so we need to work on that. Well, how do you do that? How do you work on getting more single-family dwellings? Well, you're going to need to get some industry here, some clean industry. There's different things going on in the country. I think that there's a lot of concern over what's going on in China, what's going on around the world, and I think people are starting to think they want to bring industry back here. Things like pharmaceuticals. They're thinking, traditionally we had giant pharmaceutical factories, but now they're thinking maybe we should separate them out and just make small ones throughout the country. And so the truth is, I don't know how to get that. I don't know how to get that kind of industry here, but I'd like to try, and I think it's going to take the whole city. It's going to take people coming in and working with us from the city and from BYU to get those industries here so that we can grow our traditional neighborhoods.
Mr. Mayor, can you share with us a mistake you've made over your past 4 years in office and what you learned from it and what you would do differently?
Oh boy, that's a long list. A mistake and what I learned from it. It's kind of hard to pinpoint any one particular thing, I guess, but I guess sometimes, one of the things that we always talk about is it's so important to listen, just listen. I always say that I came from a mixed political family because my mother's family was all staunch Republicans and my dad's family were all blue-collar Democrats, and so election time around my house was always very interesting. But one of the things that I think I've learned is sometimes I need to listen better to people's concerns, and I try to do that because I felt like that's been one of my strong points is being able to listen to both sides of an argument before we try to make a decision. But sometimes I think maybe I might project my own feelings into the situation, maybe a little bit too much and too soon. And so I think one of the things I've learned is to try to focus on really listening and understanding what everyone is saying, and then saying, okay, let's look at this together, let's come up with suggestions for solutions, and see if we can put together a solution that works best for everyone. And because it's all one community, and we're one team here and one family, and we've got to have things that will work for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, what is the biggest thing that sets you apart from the other two men on the stage?
The biggest things that set me apart?
Set you apart from the other candidates.
Oh, that's a good question. So like I said before, I come from a very diverse background, many different jobs in my past, and I kind of feel like the biggest thing that sets me apart is I have some firsthand knowledge of how to do some things that I feel like we aren't really doing that well in the city. One, I know it's been touched on numerous times tonight, but infrastructure, that kind of goes without saying. But finding a way that we can help not only have our single family dwelling residents, but also the apartment complexes and things of that nature. Another thing too is I really feel like it takes all of us to make this city great. That's kind of my campaign slogan, let us make Rexburg great. And what can we do to help one another? What talents, what gifts do you have? What resources do you have access to that you can help with as we come together to kind of really strive to find some of these solutions to some of these big concerns. And for me, I kind of with that diverse background, I've worked for the city in numerous capacities. Last 20 years, I was a level 1 law enforcement reserve officer, and a big thing that I see is some people just don't know how to drive that well, and that could be lack of education. I'm not sure. I'm trained in two specific different fields. One is a courier, and one is law enforcement. And honestly, I think it would be great to have some people that maybe don't know how to drive in snow take a course up here that we could offer them to teach them, distance management from cars that are in front of them.
All right. Well, The hour has nearly flown by. I do want to give you 2 minutes for your closing statements. Before we get to that, I have one final question that came in from a member of the public to the chamber. For all of you, what was the last concert you attended, and who would you pay top dollar to see perform here in Rexburg? Mr. Glasscock, we'll start with you.
My wife is an Ella Fitzgerald fan. You probably don't even know who that is. And that was probably that I can think of. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here. I think that was the last concert we went to. Who would I like to see come here? And would I pay top dollar? I'd like to see Sting unplugged. I think that would be great. So I'll go with that.
All right. Mr. Mayor.
Well, the last concert I attended was Bryce Young. Bryce Young's the baseball player. What's Brad? Yeah, the one up here at BYU-Idaho, and it was great. They actually had 3 performers, and they were all really good, and that was really fun. And I want to thank BYU-Idaho for allowing that to take place in the BYU-Idaho Center. I think it was a success, and I think everybody was well behaved, and it went off really well. But who I would pay top dollar, in fact, I have paid top dollar, but I would love to see him come to Rexburg, but I think it's a long shot, Garth Brooks.
And Mr. Evans.
Well, mine's kind of 2. I don't know if it counts. One was David Archuleta years ago, but one was right here on this stage a few months back. Kirby Hayborn, he came and played for us, and I actually really loved that. Got a chat with him afterward. And being a fellow actor in that business, he's got a lot more movies and stuff, but I love that. Who would I pay top dollar to come here? Man, I probably have a list of 10. I know what the teenagers would say. I'm kind of from the country. I don't know if anybody remembers Shania Twain. I'd love to have Shania Twain come up here and sing for us.
All right. Any promises as mayor that you'll get those acts here? Any of them?
Hey, we did Newsies right here on this stage, and it was great, too. So there's a lot of good stuff happening here.
Right. All right. Well, now we'll give you 2 minutes each for your closing statements. We'll start with you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you. Well, again, thank you all for being here. I know it's kind of hard for us up here on the stage to see you, but I'm grateful for your attendance and for your willingness to exercise your civic responsibility to come out, to hear the issues. Obviously, you can tell that we're all from different walks of life, right? We have different backgrounds, and we're very good at certain things, some similar and some completely different, and that's okay. I'm grateful to be here. Honestly, I took a stand to run for mayor based on an experience I had about a year ago. Try not to get too emotional, but I was involved in a rear-end collision at a job that I really liked, and I felt like I was really good at. And because of that, it's left me with some difficulty that we're working through to be able to overcome through physical therapy and some other things. But I saw firsthand many needs that were going unmet in this community. And having grown up here, I'm from Southeast Idaho, and I just felt like, we need to take a stand. And not to say, I don't want to pontificate, right? Sit up here and act like we know everything. But what I do know, I'm willing to share, and what I don't know, I am willing to learn, and I want to listen to your feedback. And as I drove customers in my little taxi business, I realized that we all have pretty similar goals. We truly do want what's best for one another, for our families, for our children, and we want to be able to exercise our rights freely and openly in a safe environment and in a non-judgmental way. And I'm excited to be able to work with you and to see what you have to bring to the table as we strive to work to make Rexburg great.
Mr. Glasscock.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about how the city spends money. We recently got a new logo for our city. I, for one, didn't really understand what was wrong with the old logo, but we had another one, and the city paid for someone to come in and make a logo for us. It seems another thing is the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan started off by kind of a mandate from the state of Idaho, to where the cities of Idaho had to make a plan, and there were certain things enumerated in that from the state that we had to do. Well, I think we could have done that. Now, we got a grant that paid for it, but I think that we have the ability here amongst ourselves to do that sort of thing. And I think that the people of Rexburg are willing to do that kind of stuff. They want to do it. So another thing, so for me, to take me for an example, I needed to get some flyers because I'm running for mayor. And so I go down to Alpha Graphics, and they want me to pay $160 for an hour for design. Okay, well, I just went home and got on my computer. I made a little flyer for myself. I went to the copy place, and I think it cost me $8. And they're out there in the lobby, so take one on your way out. They just have different bullet points. But I think that we can do a lot more things in-house, and I think that as things go along, we're going to have to worry about how we spend our money.
And Mayor Mayoral.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike and Luke. I appreciate those comments, and thank you for running, actually. I really do appreciate it. You know, the lazy side of me would say, you know, it'd be nice if I didn't have opponents because then I don't have to do as much work. But in reality, it's good for people to have choices. And I think a lot of the things that you've brought up are very valuable. And I appreciate you for putting yourselves out there. So thank you. And how about that slate of city council candidates? They were excellent, don't you think? Let's give them a hand. A lot of really good people here in Rexburg, and I appreciate all of them. And I'd like to also give a shout out to my good wife, Mary Ann. One of the good things about my being mayor is you get the counsel of my good wife, which is really valuable. You know, I talk things over with her, and she gives me commentary and some wisdom that I think I wouldn't get otherwise, and so I really appreciate that point of view, and that's why it's good to be able to work together with a lot of different people to get those viewpoints. You know, the other morning my wife and I were walking, went out early walking. This is October, we call it Walktober in the Mayor's Walking Challenge. You have to get 10,000 steps a day, so we go out early and go walking. And we were walking past this row of my neighbor's 4 trees. Now, those trees are all for the same genus and species, but the first tree was bright red leaves. The next one was kind of more green still, and the next one was just kind of a mix of red and green, and the third one, or the fourth one, even had red and some orange in it. And I thought, you know, that's a lot like us here in Rexburg. We all are humans and the same, but we have these little differences. And you know, that line of trees was beautiful, and it painted a great picture for that homeowner and for the neighbors. And so we need to just be able to be that same picture here in Rexburg. We need to work together. Even though we have differences, we can still have a beautiful place called America's Family Community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's hear it for our candidates one more time. Each of these gentlemen have completed in-depth questionnaires that East Idaho News sent out, and we will be posting those, I believe, on Saturday, so you can learn more about them as well as reach out to their campaigns directly. Thank you for joining us here in the Westwood in the Romance Theater tonight, and thank you to all of our candidates. Thank you to the Chamber, and again, our sponsors, Taylor Chevrolet, ICCU, Raybould Family Farms, and Citizens Community Bank. I'm Nate Eaton. Have a good night.